Hello, I'm the Shireling. I'll be your mastermind rogue of a DM, and welcome to D&D for Dummies. On this YouTube channel, we'll be focusing mainly on three things: tips and tricks for players, rules and concepts for GMs, and reviews and tutorials for various D&D and RPG related products. So, let's get into it. Starting off today's series, we're going to be going over Fantasy Grounds Unity. It's one of the two products of the Fantasy Grounds portfolio. Compared to Fantasy Grounds Classic, Unity is still in beta. It's also using the Unity engine. Being in beta, it has a couple of new features that people are excited to experience, play around with, look at. They're doing dynamic lighting, they're incorporating line of sight. There's a lot of tools to help with homebrewing maps and creating things on the fly. But overall, both systems, both programs are really fantastic. But again, we're going to be doing a tutorial today on Unity. We're not going to be going over everything. There's only so much attention span one would have in order to watch a video. So in today's video, we're going to be showing how to create or join a campaign, some of the basics when it comes to the different options that most people use to set up, the different sidebars, the hotbar, how to pick a decal, how to use dice towers, how to use dice, the chat window, the tray. And once we're done with that, we'll have some more videos to show up later in this series. So again, starting off, the very first thing that we're going to look at is the actual login window, the lobby. Excuse me. When you get in, the very first thing you're going to see is a couple of different links right here in the middle. These are all hyperlinks to the different pages that you can get more information. But again, this is software, and so up here in the top left there's a folder button which will actually show you where things are saved on your computer. So as a GM, you'll most likely have a couple of different campaigns. Maybe you like all the different customization and automation that you can get by using extensions. Extensions help with the open source nature of Fantasy Grounds, where you actually change the code by using different modular programming that'll adjust the way that things look and feel and function. When you are, as a GM, trying to set up your campaign, the very first thing you would go to is go to create. You'd pick a campaign name. You might put in a password. For me, my GM name is Shireling. And afterwards, you would pick a rule set. What is a rule set? Some people might go, okay, well, a rule set is what you get off of one of these. This is a reference manual. Reference manual have rules, and it's the rules as written, and you'll have full descriptions and maybe images and stuff like that. But a rule set is how that information is actually applicable and functions within a virtual tabletop. If you're going to be rolling with advantage, which dice does it drop? Same thing with disadvantage. If you're going to be flanking, can it see whether or not that actually applies because of where the tokens are located on the grid with your map? All of that functionality is included in the rule set, and it changes from RPG to RPG, of which Fantasy Grounds offers many. And again, when it comes to extensions, you might use a variety yourselves in order to look at and do a variety of different things. Many of the ones that show up automatically are these themes down at the bottom. Those come straight with the program itself for free. Personally, I like this free extension called the Token Height Indicator. I'll have the link to it in the description of the video at the bottom. That actually allows you to use hold down the Alt key and use the scroll wheel on your mouse when you're hovering over a token, and it will actually add a height indicator for the token so you can calculate the range in 3 dimensions. And just like how you would at a regular table, you might have those elevated plastic things that will show height stands. this is the same thing but on the virtual scale. Again, free, you'll find many different free ones on the wikis and forums. This one I use a lot myself, so again, I'll include it. As a player, you don't really care about the top two. You're more worried about the games that you have been playing in, which is recorded on the history section, as well as being able to locate your GM and see which games he currently is doing. As soon as I hit enter, it would find the game that I currently have running. But in the meantime, if I want to just see which ones are open and available, I can see with these green ones which ones currently match my current settings and are available. If there's no password protection, I can just double click and pop in. If it is yellow, that means that it's a mismatch on the terms of being updated, which again, this check for updates button would automatically be a different color, and you would be able to click on that and get your thing ready to go before your sessions. One of the other things that I did in preparation for my campaigns is I utilize an option in Unity called a message of the day. You can type in a short message into an input field, or you can click and drag other text or other pieces into it so that when a player goes ahead and logs in for the first time, they can go ahead and have something pop straight up onto their screen. For example purposes in our game, I wrote in a message, "Congrats on leveling up. Please remember to update your sheets before tonight's session." Again, just nice little reminders, things that people can use. The other thing that automatically loads when you log in is the character selection window, which you can just go ahead and click the different characters that you own. When players log in, their portraits will pop up here at the top. And if we were to go ahead and move this to the side so that we could see both the players as well as the DM. When it comes to the GM screen, you'll see when a player is connected because it'll show up in this chat window that also acts as a dice tray. Well, one of the things that you'll also notice is depending on which character I'm currently running, their character name will be in bold. If I double click their portrait, their character sheet will pop up. The color near the portrait matches their dice. That way, when they go ahead and roll, if I left click, I pick up one dice. As long as I'm holding it and I right click, I can generate a second one. The color of the dice will match, and so will the portrait. If I wanted to and actually select a different number, maybe as a DM I'm going to do some damage, I can just right click and get exactly the number I want. And again, as a GM, the color is shaded so that sometimes you can go ahead and scare your players if you're using your options correctly and have turned your GM rolls on as well as the dice tower. Then instead of always hiding your numbers, when you roll, sometimes they show up, other times they do not. So in either case, you can use the dice towers. They're very, very helpful. I find them enjoyable. But one of the things you'll notice is these hotbars on the bottom. As a player, you might have a variety of different things you want on the bottom of your hotbar. For this particular player, I put on his class. That way, if they needed to look up the details as a sorcerer, they could. And when they're ready to level up, they can just click and drag and drop. And when they do, their character will level up. When it comes to death saving throws, you can just click and drag and drop it to the bottom. Maybe I want to be able to have them easily able to roll initiative. I could drop that down there. If I wanted to rename what this says, I can right click, edit, and start typing away and fix things. If I want to clear something off, I can go ahead, right click, and clear it. That way I can replace it in the future. Being able to do all these things makes life very, very easy so that when you're on different pages of your character sheet. You don't have to go flipping back to the front to go, oh, we're taking a short rest. Maybe I want to use some of my hit die. And so I go ahead and roll and get my hit die back. Or, hey, I need you to roll initiative. You go ahead and click, and your initiative's been rolled. So using that hotbar is very, very helpful. Again, if you hold down the Shift key, you get another set of options, Control and Alt as well, and any combination of those individually or in conjunction with one another. So that's kind of the hotbar, and that's a little bit of the preview on the dice. One of the other things that is interesting is that when you're using items that have ammo, whether it's crossbows or bows, or maybe it's a dagger, if you click on this button, it'll switch between melee, ranged, and thrown. And if I was to go ahead and throw a dagger, it would actually go ahead and not only show me the roll, but it would also keep track of the ammo. And when I was out of ammo, it will actually say it. So it's nice not having to keep track of it yourself. That and other things like spell slots can be reset either by clicking, or there's some automation which we'll go over later in a different video on how that can be taken care of on things that happen once per long rests, once per short rest, that type of thing, dailies, all that jazz. So we'll get more into the character sheet at another video. But at this point, we've kind of talked about the very basics, and when it comes to rolling things with advantage, you just click down here at the bottom. It'll say what number got dropped, what number gets kept. Same thing when it comes to disadvantage. If you needed to add modifiers, you can add them, or you can add negative ones, -2, +2, +5. So this should just be a +5 to whatever I roll. There it is down at the bottom. The other two get added in. So a lot of these things are very, very easy to use. And one of the things that you will notice is that the players have different selections than the GM. Those are set up over here on the options by clicking on sidebar and figuring out exactly what you want. Maybe as a GM, I also want to have my spells there. I can click that and add that. Maybe I want to completely pick which ones I specifically want and in what order. Maybe we're doing character creation, or again, the player, the GM, or I want to have all of them. Who doesn't want to have all of their options? Again, all these things are set up just with a quick click. But one of the other things that we're going to talk about is an aspect of some customization. If you look at the backdrop on this screen, it will match the one on the GM side, but the GM, I can change it from the Smiteworks logo to other logos that I loaded as extensions. Maybe we're running Lost Mine of Phandelver and I want to have that as a background. Okay, well I need to have the module loaded as well. That way I can have my digital copy of the book. So I'll go ahead and find that and load that. But there's a red label on there. What does that mean? If I come over here and I search for SRD, SRD is the basic information that Smiteworks gives away for free when you are purchasing the software. Players see the things that have the green symbols. Red are the ones that only the GM can see. Again, with that, you can go ahead and filter those and change those, and when you do, it'll update and do the different things that you want. And when you have the modules, if you needed to search for something, say as a GM, lots of people will want me to have different things for reference. If I need to look at everything for the digital copy, I can go through and look. Or maybe someone had a question about conditions. I can search here and everything is searchable. And then I can grab that particular link and again drop it to my hotbar. So using hotbars and using your library allows you to combine things from different adventures together. It makes everything very simple, very easy. The last thing that we will be going over is your dice. You can go ahead and update the color of your dice very quickly, very easily. You can change whether it's black or white on the text. We've already talked about the modifiers, but now we're going to talk a little bit about the dice tray itself. With your different rolls that you do, maybe I was going ahead and doing my damage, and I roll my damage. Maybe they had resistance. I could divide it in two. Maybe they were vulnerable. I can multiply it by 2. The options are endless. You can just click and drag that value as damage onto the characters in what we call the combat tracker. But the big thing I wanted to kind of illustrate today was kind of the ability to use languages and the ability to use this dice tray and chat window in a variety of different features real quick. So the very first thing is maybe one of the characters, maybe Cunning, the player that's playing the character Cunning is not looking so good. I'll go and say, hey, do you need a quick break? And shoot them a whisper message by doing /W. They would get the whisper, it would ping in their headphones, they'd be able to see it, look down, /R to reply and go, yeah, thanks, I could use 5 minutes. Send it back, and again the GM would get that private message. If they were ready to walk away and step out for a few minutes, they could go ahead and toggle AFK. The same thing would happen if they typed /AFK, which again means away from keyboard or the user is left. Once they're back, they can just simply click in here, type once, and it shows that they're back. Or again, they could right click up here and toggle on the little clock symbol or take it off. So in terms of communicating when you need breaks, what's going on, doing whispers, messaging back and forth, those private messages are very easy to do. And again, you can do whispers directly to the GM just by typing /WGM, or you can do it to fellow players. Either way it works. The other thing that's kind of unique and interesting is if the players had a situation where they maybe came up to a crossroad and they could either go left or maybe they could go right. Depending on how many players have been logged in for the session, right now I only have 1, there's only 1 circle, but if I had multiple players, this would extend and have multiple circles. So each one of them could vote, yes, we'll go left, or no, or whatever the question was. So you do have the ability to vote. You also have the ability to use languages in a unique way where I know that my players, some of them speak Undercommon. So maybe they run into a drow that says, hey, who's there? What is the password? And they're going to say that in Undercommon. Well, it shows up in a very interesting text. And for those players that know how to speak Undercommon, Cunning doesn't. She doesn't have that ability. But as we can see, Gags and Arcos Buckman both can. So they understand. And they could respond in kind. Password is abracadabra. And again, they can go ahead and communicate. If people can't communicate, say they run into a giant and the giant says, you all look tasty, and he's speaking in giant, then again, players don't know what's going on. But this creates the ability so that when you're using different language, whether it's something that they read that's written up on top of an archway, or maybe it's some thieves' cant that's written on the side of the building. You have the language, you write it in there, and those that can speak it or read it or write it would be able to understand. And so it gives opportunities for people to communicate in fun and interesting ways. So again, we've covered quite a few different things in today's training, this tutorial video. In the future videos, we'll be going over a little bit more when it comes to combat, how to use maps, the different ways that we automate long and short rests, and get a little bit more in detail on how to create a character and how the character sheets actually function and work. But in the meantime, again, my name is Shireling. If you have any questions or comments, by all means, put them down below this video. If you think I did a crappy job, let me know. Give me a like, give me a dislike, subscribe. I'd be happy to, again, help all the rest of you, like myself, learn how to do D&D. Because again, this is D&D for Dummies.